Hey everybody, Leah Klett here with the Christian Post. My guest today is actor Abe Bueno-Jallad. He plays Big James in The Chosen. Season 5 is now streaming on Amazon Prime. When I first met you, The Chosen was still this tiny little show that people were really excited about and they loved it, but people didn't really know about it. Now it's
hmm
this like global phenomenon. What has that been like? It's got to be crazy.
it's this show was overwhelming from the beginning with the magnitude of intensity that the select group of fans had, and now it's everywhere. I mean, it's everything. I was just talking about how I got recognized for the first time in California, which I think is kind of a big statement. So, yeah, we definitely it's in the air. It's buzzing. My friends are sending me pictures from all the billboards in and around Hollywood. I mean, we have had another homecoming, so to speak, you know?
I was at Chosen Con last year and I think it was the first time it fully hit me, just the magnitude of the show and how avid the fan base is.
Yeah, and it's because of those, I used to say like back in season two, it was like everybody's mom knew or everyone's grandma knew what the show was about. Now it's really a mishmash. Like I've had young Gen Zers approach me. I've had people that you would not expect approach me. That is perhaps like the thing that gives me so much beautiful hope about this show is that it really is like it's bringing everybody to take another look. And if nothing else, I think that's great. There's so much wisdom here, not just in our show, but like obviously in the original source material, be it the New Testament or the Old Testament. It's so profound. And taking on this role has really made me take a second look at what's really in there and how does it resonate with me today.
Are you able to separate playing a biblical character sometimes from the scriptural text? Like, how do you do that? Be like, okay, I'm bringing this character to the big screen, but this was a real
Yeah.
person that happened, but I have to add my own, cinematic flair. How do you kind of walk that line?
Oh, man, it's you're right on, you're spot on. And anytime that you play anyone that is historical, there's gonna be this sort of responsibility that one feels, or at least that I felt, in trying to capture authenticity, right?
Yeah.
But we are telling stories, and stories are like a boiled down moment to some of the pros and cons, the woes and the highs, of your life. So in those circumstances is where I try to find that flair. And you'll see a lot of it in season two when I'm like, the biggest problem is these Samaritans. Let's get that out of here, Like you'll see kind of that I'm really playing the sharpness of James through my interpretation. And like what you're going to see in these subsequent seasons is just someone more grounded, more open, more vulnerable and listening, which is just so different. So, yeah, there it is.
So season 5 of The Chosen hits Prime Video June 15th. This is major because there really hasn't been a series or anything about the Bible, about Jesus Christ, that's hit a major streaming service like this before. So this collaboration is massive.
Well, Amazon has taken us on and given us a home, and they make us feel super welcome. I just have to say that they've been amazing, really. And but it's going to be cool to kind of have that television phenomenon experience. I mean, we can go down the list of from The Sopranos to I was going to say Dungeons and Dragons, Game of Thrones. Wrong channel. But Game of Thrones, to kind of have
Uh-huh.
that sort of television event. And then the fact that they're releasing it piecemeal as well on the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th lets me know that they're anticipating a sort of excitement already. And obviously, season 5 is the turning point. Season 4 was the half point. Season 5 is where, unfortunately, the politic of the time um, is really causing a divide amongst the people that follow Jesus, the people that are hearing his message, and those that don't want to accept any sort of change, like the Romans who have a huge investment on it staying status quo, right?
Mhm.
So season 5 is that it breaks. Something breaks in season 5, and it's so poignant that Jesus has to have his sort of final chat with us in the Last Supper.
How did the emotional weight of, these last days leading up to the crucifixion impact your performance or your perspective on the role of Big James for this season?
I it's so easy to understand in our context that there's a resurrection and everything was sort of there's this resolution that's given by the resurrection. That's just not true if you didn't experience, like if you experience it linearly, you don't know that that's going to happen. So like, can you imagine? Yeah, it's like witnessing somebody be gone. And so you have to stay there with that. And that feeling was just there. It was lingering. It was that darkness, you know? So it kind of had never dawned on me that they didn't know that the resurrection was going to happen. And that I only came to that realization through the performance because it really had to go into the drama, into the depths of that despair. It couldn't go anywhere else because that's the only information that they had in the moment. You know, he was arrested, tried, crucified. He he died, you know.
Mhm.
So we're there, we're there. So I can't get ahead of it as an actor who's aware of the timeline. I sort of have to live it as James who's just going through this for the first time.
Yeah, I love that you talk about sort of James's personal growth and his character development through the seasons. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from this person who's a real historical figure?
The lessons that I've learned obviously are tied down to the character in the story, not necessarily what I've gotten from the Bible, which I wish James had written a book. Maybe that would have made my job easier. So I have to play in the gray a lot, I have to play in the gray of reading John, what was his journey. And so really I'm capturing these guesses about the growth of James based on how his brother grew and based on how others grew. And so for me, I am I am reminded that regardless of our strengths, we don't have to put away the strongest part of ourselves, but our strengths can also cause us not to listen. And so it is really about integrating a humble, listening person to your most amazing, glowed up, magnanimous parts of yourself, which once again can be the parts that least pay attention to the things that are happening around them.
How did it feel different in terms of scale and storytelling? And are we going to see this sort of bleed into season 6 as well?
Yeah, I think season six will be its own sort of whale that we tackle once we're done with it. We're kind of in the middle of it right now. So I can't quite retrospect it. It feels big, but I'm not quite sure yet. But season five, I mean, shooting The Last Supper alone, 2 weeks in that room, we knew that we were trying our hardest to give this an honest shot, to give this an honest, and we were using our resources to the max. And it was everything's bigger, but like how does that feel from the filmmaking end of things? It's the attention to detail. And you'll see there's so many details that we just didn't have the budgets for in earlier seasons. So we had this luxury to give it a fair shot, to give it a go, And we felt it. I did. I was like, okay, here it is. This is even my work was challenged to become stronger, to be more open, to find what I would consider Big James's ultimate vulnerability in season five. So yeah, it tested us, and the test is only supported by the fact that the show's bigger. If it gets bigger, we all have to expand.
What has your emotional state been like going into season 6 though? Because it's getting more emotionally intense. It's getting crazier. Like, what has that been like emotionally and spiritually for you?
I think that emotionally it requires a sort of focus. It's not really that I can't say that it's so much fun, but it is
Yeah.
fun. I mean, I'm doing my job and I love what I do. But every day you got to go into work and bring to life the reality that we are being hunted, that we are being persecuted, and that we must be careful. So that's like a very, very intense place to be. And, I'm not exactly like, yeah, chipper in the morning. You kind of have to be like, deep breath, here we go. All right, let's get into it, you know? So it does take a sort of emotional fortitude. And then spiritually you just ask to be guided. That's always it. And hope that we're doing some justice here. We never know how we're going to be used. So the best thing we can hope for is to be guided, and to be covered in everything that we do, even our mistakes.
Are you ever on set performing a scene and you're like, oh, wow, like this story is really paralleling what we're going through right now in culture? Have there been any moments where that's just hit you?
Every time since I started this show, I was like, they're talking about the same thing, like it's such a we try to believe that that was so long ago and we've come so far, but what, like we have, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that we can, talk online and we got the phones, but like at the core, what's missing, there was a bunch of people who were not happy with the state of things. It wasn't even the politics. I think politics is diminishing it to something so you know it's dust. I think what people are saying is like they were longing for something in their lives. They were longing for something that nourished them. And I think we're kind of saying the same thing right now. And it doesn't have to be about the same political side. I think everyone is saying the same thing. They're hungry for something more and they don't quite know what. And I think that these people in the first century were absolutely hungry, and Jesus's message picked them up out of a place they were in their lives. So, yeah, it's a huge parallel.
Yes. What is the biggest thing you've learned about the person and nature and character of Jesus after studying him for so many years now?
It never ceases to amaze me how and hit me in this very particular string in my heart how human, you know like to both balance the responsibility of having divinity and humanity.
Mhm.
Um, it just shows them, I understand the word mercy a lot more. I understand gratitude and blessings a lot more through the fact that divinity and humanity were intertwined, you know?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's and it's the simple moments like, Jesus talking to his mom. Of course he talked to his mom. He had a mom, like it's all of these things where you see yourself in the tiny, little 0.001 thing that he tying his sandals. He's tired, like all of these things that I was like, me too, man, me too. And I never thought about it that way, right? It's like always this above thing. It's never this related thing, you know?
It's always good to see you. It's always good to talk to you. Can't wait for the next season. And hey, great job
Thank
over all
you.
these years. It's so cool to see how well you guys have done and the show just explode.
Dude, good to see you. A real pleasure. Always enjoy our interviews, and your questions are always like really well thought out. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more Christ-centered journalism.